Well, for more, I'm now joined live from the US by political satirist and author Ted Rowell. Ted, thanks very much indeed for being with us here on RT. Now, we're just learning today that a key rebel military commander is apparently calling on the leaders of the National Transitional Council to resign. Is this perhaps a signal that the rebel movement is falling apart now that Gaddafi's lost power?
Well, I have some sympathy for Ismail al-Salabi and his call to get rid of all the former regime figures. I mean, it's not much of a revolution if you have former officials from the government that has just been deposed. Certainly, you would see any kind of division like that in a scenario where a revolution is not fully realized, and that seems to be the situation in Libya.
But it is a transitional council, isn't it? It's temporary, so therefore there are going to be elections later, so they aren't actually chosen by the people at the moment. Isn't that acceptable, that it is a temporary organisation, and you may need people with experience to be in that council?
Right, well, that's the argument, and certainly, but the more radical factions within the Libyan opposition obviously aren't going to buy that. Any kind of revolutionary movement is an alliance of convenience, but in the end, you end up with what Shah Massoud in Afghanistan once said in the 1980s in the war against the Soviets. First, we kill the Russians, next we kill each other. In Libya, they have effectively killed the Gaddafi regime, and now they're going to kill each other.
Well, that brings me on to my next point. We see thousands of armed rebels on Tripoli streets at the moment, but the leaders of the NTC are yet to move their HQ there. Do you think there really is then a danger of a power vacuum in the capital, and we could see disorder there?
Well, of course, there's always that danger in a situation like this, but I do think that there is an awareness on the part of the National Transitional Council as well as NATO that they don't want a repeat of what happened in Baghdad, where the Americans failed to provide basic security. If you don't have law and order, you really don't have much of anything at all, and democracy and freedom don't have a chance of taking root, as we've seen in Iraq.
Let's talk about the oil controversy at the moment. The rebels are said to be providing countries like France and Italy with lucrative oil contracts. And this is fair payback, isn't it, for NATO's help in getting rid of Gaddafi?
Well, it's certainly the way that the world works. Whether it's fair is another question entirely. I guess if I were a Libyan citizen, I would want the deals to go to the highest bidder, and I would want it to be as transparent as possible. But that's probably unrealistic at this point. What's a little unseemly is how quickly these deals are being made. The government hasn't really taken root yet, and they're already cutting these deals. It's a little fast.
But those international companies were there already before the revolution, so isn't it in the country's interest, in Libya's interest, for oil production to get back to some sort of order as quickly as possible? And you need that expertise, and you need those international companies who were there before.
Certainly, there's a balance to be had between getting oil production up and running again. But there's also the other issue to be weighed is, this is a new government. They should try to cut the best possible deal for their people. It doesn't seem that that's really on the table.
Ted, can we talk about Syria now? Don't those deadly crackdowns on demonstrators that are being reported at the moment, doesn't that situation there warrant some sort of international action?
Well, it does if you buy the U.S. and NATO's idea that every time there's a situation like Libya, or that there should be some kind of international intervention. But very clearly, that's not how things work, as we saw back in the 1990s in Rwanda. There's a whole geopolitical mix that comes into play, and if Syria were deemed to be a good candidate for the U.S. or Europe to dominate, then I would say that Assad would be on the ropes. But I don't think it's going to happen. All the signals are that the United States is overextended and that the Europeans don't have any interest in this. So I would say if I were Mr. Assad, I would sleep well tonight.
You say the US is overextended. Now, you're there, of course, in the country. As a satirist, of course, there is one point of view that you probably raised a few times, that the US economy, which, of course, is in trouble at the moment, has relied on the military-industrial machine for years. So you could say that it has to keep getting involved in conflicts to keep that cash lifeline. Despite you saying it's overextended, and we know the economy is in a bad way, could, though, we see another target appearing?
Well, there's such a paradox. You know, on the one hand, the cliche is that militarism stimulates the economy. However, it also tends to run down an empire, and we're seeing both at work here. I mean, at this point in the United States, militarism is driving the political structure and is allowing the system and both the Democrats and the Republicans to distract U.S. citizens from the major issues such as widespread unemployment and underemployment. But the real economic boost that you saw, for instance, from World War II just isn't here because we're not on a total war footing. Most of the gains go to contractors, and so you know, it's definitely a paradox. That said, so the real question is, you know, what's going to win out here in terms of future targets? The desire to keep the people distracted, or the desire for, you know, or the desire to work on the economy. I would say the balance still tips towards more militarism because the system still doesn't really take the economic problems very seriously.
Really interesting to hear your thoughts. Ted Rowell, live there in San Francisco. Thanks for your time here on RT.
Thank you.